Am I the a-hole for not including my ex-wife's stepkids in activities I do with my kids? My ex-wife, 39F, and I, 42M, divorced about 4 years ago after 12 years of marriage. We have 2 kids together, 10 and 8. We live about 30 minutes apart and have split custody, but the kids live with me primarily during the school year because I live in a much better school district. The kids spend 3 weekends a month with their mom during this time. My ex and I co-parent pretty well in my opinion and usually get along fine. My ex remarried a little over a year after our divorce and has 3-year-old twins with her new husband. She also now has 2 stepkids, 13 and 11, as well. So when my kids are visiting their mom, there are 6 kids in the house. My kids hate it because they never truly feel like they are at home there because their mom's attention is divided so much between all the kids, especially their young half-siblings. They tell me that they never do any activities when they are there. They pretty much always just stick around the house because it's so much work for my ex and her husband to handle that many kids. So, I make it a point to do something fun the one weekend a month I have my kids at home. Camping, sporting events, museums, zoos, fairs, festivals, etc. My kids and I really look forward to planning and doing these things together. My ex has started asking me if it would be possible to include her stepkids in some of these activities because they are getting jealous of all the fun things my kids are doing. This turned into an argument recently because I told her to stop asking because her stepkids are not my kids and I have zero desire to build any kind of relationship with them. I told her that the only thing stopping her and her husband from doing fun things with the kids is themselves. She told me it's a lot of work with 6 kids and I wouldn't understand. I told her it was her choice to marry a man with kids and to have more kids herself and that isn't my problem. She told me it would be fun bonding experiences for our kids and the step-kids and it would mean a lot to her if I would help her out with that. I told her that making her life easier is no longer something I am required to do and if she and her husband can't handle all the kids at the same time, then I am more than willing to revisit our custody agreement so I can have our kids more often if that would make her life easier. That pissed her off and she called me an asshole for being petty about this. I ended up telling my kids that they should try to refrain from telling their mom and step-siblings too much about the activities we do together. They didn't really understand why because we've always told them that they can tell us anything, but I explained it to them the best I could. I do feel bad about that part because I want them to know they can be honest with both their parents, but that seems to be the easiest way to keep the step-kids from getting jealous. Am I the a-hole for requesting my next-door neighbor to make her toddler stop crying? Context: I 36F live next door to new tenants who moved in some 6 months ago and they have a toddler 2/3 years in age. He shrieks at all times of the day and just does the whole throwing himself on the ground tantrum thing multiple times a day. Due to the hybrid work model, I work from home 3 days a week. It's become a regular occurrence to have multiple instances of managers/clients asking why there is a child crying. Over the weekend, met my neighbor upstairs and she asked me if I too woke up early with a shock. Context: last Saturday the whole building woke up at 5:45 in the morning because the child was screaming and it went on for a good 20 minutes. Info: the child is healthy. Regularly see the child in the play area in the street. The mother is a stay-at-home mom. There is no neglect. The child is well looked after. He looks about 3 years old and goes to a play school in the mornings. But hasn't been going this week. Now on to what happened today. I'm working on something critical while handing off my responsibilities due to a transition and have back-to-back calls. Over the course of 4 hours I had to keep pausing my call. At one point, an important client, in another continent, asked me if I needed to be excused to take care of my child, I should reschedule the call. Another person on the call chimed in with the sentence, "We should not be neglecting a child because our call is running long." Apologized to them and informed them that that was my neighbor's child. They mentioned how it sounds like it's happening in my house. After the call ended I went out to the balcony and in a very respectful way asked the mother if the child was unwell. She didn't like it and asked why. I asked her again if the baby is unwell, she said no. She mentioned she took away something that he was trying to eat and that's why he was crying. Explained to her what happened on my calls and she snapped with, "He's a baby, what do you expect?" I asked her if I didn't talk to the child's mother, who else do I speak to? Explained to her that I completely understand the challenges of being a mother and I'm sure it's overwhelming. But it happens so many times a day and is not letting me focus. She started crying. Am I the a-hole for showing proof as to why I wasn't gonna pay for my sister and her partner's expensive meals? Last week, myself, my sibling, their partner and our mom went out to a nice new restaurant in town as our mother had been wanting to go for a while. So we both decided to bring her as a treat. As I have food allergies and am recovering from jaw surgery, I have limited foods I can eat, therefore I only got a couple sides that were easy to chew and swallow. My meal was $25 total, mom's total was $65, and my sibling and her partner's meals were each well over $150. When the server came to our table to ask about the checks, I stated I was paying for mine and we were splitting our mother's 50-50. This left my sibling and her partner to pay for their own meal and half of our mother's. They threw a fit and told me I was being stingy and selfish because the whole bill should have been split down the middle since it's a family outing. I stated that this outing was for our mother because she's been wanting to go and we decided to treat her to it, but that I am not required to pay for their meals just because we're family. They were heated and began getting angry with me, then gave me the silent treatment the whole ride home. My mother agrees that I should not have been paying for their food as they were most likely expecting a cheap nice meal, but they've now taken to FB to complain about selfish family. Keep in mind, I don't use FB, but mom doesn't saw the post. That made other family members call and text me to tell me I'm selfish and insecure because I'm single, etc. It got chaotic. At that point, as my receipt was sent to me email and my sister had hers sent to my email for me to assess and text to her, she said her email was too full. My mother decided to post both receipts on FB to show that I wasn't the selfish one. Now those same family members are going off on my sister and her partner for being selfish, while also telling me I had not business airing out the truth because they have a right to be angry that I wouldn't pay their way and saying now I'm starting drama. Am I the a-hole for telling my kids that my mill hates me, and that's why I'm not coming on our family trip? My husband, 33M, and I, 31F, have two 8-year-old twin boys. We both work full-time and my husband makes a little more than me, but just a little. We make enough to be financially secure, we can afford all the necessities and rent a 2-bedroom apartment, but we have never traveled, aside from weekend road trips, and probably won't be able to in the foreseeable future. My husband's family is quite well off. A few weeks ago, my mill called my husband and asked if he wanted to bring our kids to go on a trip with her. She apparently wanted to spend some time with her family. Her family, though, doesn't include me. She has always disliked me and never considered me part of her family. Partly because I'm not religious, my husband is, but he respects my lack of belief, and also because she just doesn't like me. My husband knows this and hasn't ever forced me to interact with her, but he still talks to her occasionally. Anyhow, he told me that my mill had offered to pay for him and the boys to go on a 2-week trip with her around Thanksgiving time. I'm not invited. She said I'm not really her family, so she doesn't want to pay for me too. This is what she said word for word. According to my husband, she knows that we cannot afford for me to pay to come on this luxury trip. She can't afford it pretty easily herself. I was pretty upset about this, because I'd love a break too, but I understand that the kids will love this, so I said that of course they should go. I tried to be cheerful about it, but my husband understood that I was upset. He asked my mill specifically to please invite me too so that we can have proper family trip. She reiterated that I might be his family but I'm not her family. I told him not to push it, because I want my kids to have a good time without my husband and mill fighting during the trip. But I've been feeling pretty angry about the whole thing. So yesterday when my son asked me why I wasn't more excited about the trip, I told him I wasn't coming because his grandma hates me. I said this in a bitter tone. They were pretty upset to hear this. Later, my husband told me I was an asshole for dumping my feelings on my kids, and making them feel guilty about looking forward to the trip. He said I was ruining it for them and also ruining their relationship with my mill, they're pretty close, and that I'm being selfish. So do you think I'm in the wrong? Am I the a-hole for explaining to a man who refused to mind his business what happens in graphic detail what happens if I drink regular cow's milk in my latte? I had some tests to have run at my local hospital today. In the hospital is a coffee place. It isn't Starbucks but it's a local place that has a few locations in my area. When I was all done with my medical stuff I decided to treat myself to a coffee. I got in a long line behind man that I noticed kept muttering about something. I noticed every time someone in front of him ordered a coffee with some sort of plant milk he would mutter louder. Finally he was up to order. He looked around and loudly said I want a regular drip coffee with real milk, not this frou-frou BS everyone drinks these days. The barista rolled her eyes and got his coffee. He was standing nearby messing with his drink or something. I ordered a latte with oat milk. I was kind of waiting for him to say something but I wasn't officially instigating because I always get oat milk. The guy looks at me and says, "You know that's not milk, right?" I said, "Yeah, I know." He then says, "It won't kill you to drink regular milk, right? It's good for you." Now here's where I might be the I said, "Yeah, it won't kill me but I don't want a Hershey squirt all the way home. I don't want to shit myself from now until there is nothing left in my stomach. So if you don't mind I will take my oat milk latte and not shit myself, thanks." The guy threw his coffee away and left. The barista was in shock. Now I feel bad and my husband said it was kind of uncalled for but he also laughed so hard when I told him. I get so annoyed when people decide they have some out-of-pocket thing to say to me.